One of the things you talked about, James, that I thought was really interesting, you talked about the mismatch between immediate and delayed rewards. Good habits, you start doing something, you start jogging, you start praying, you start reading, you start journaling, you start writing thank you notes to people, and you don't see an immediate result. But then you do something like eat the whole piece of cake and you get your dopamine rush, or you play video games and you get your dopamine rush, and the bad things seem to be more fun at first, and the good disciplines and habits seem to take a frustrating amount of time before you start seeing results. Can you kind of add some context to how you approach that and what it means to us?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a complicated thing. There's sort of this like valley of death often when it comes to building a new habit. Like say you go to the gym, like what is the reward for working out for like 3 weeks? It's not really a whole lot, honestly. Like you've been staying consistent, working hard, but your body looks basically the same. Like there's not really much outcome. If anything, your muscles are probably sore and you still don't have the results that you were looking for. And that kind of thing is true for many habits. Like what is the reward of working on your book for an hour every day and doing that for 3 months? Like the book probably still isn't done. And so, this is the case for many good habits, which is that the immediate outcome is often kind of unfavorable, and it's only the ultimate outcome that is more enjoyable or satisfying. With bad habits, as you mentioned, it's often the reverse. So, like the immediate outcome of eating a donut is kind of great. It's sugary, it's tasty, it's enjoyable. It's only the ultimate outcome if you keep doing that each day and you turn around a year later and, now you've gained weight and so on. So the way that I would phrase this is that the cost of your bad habits is in the future. The cost of your good habits is in the present. And so what you're looking for are ways to change that equation, ways to make your good habits more enjoyable while you're waiting for those long-term rewards to accumulate. And there are a couple different ways you can do this. Like one thing you can do is one of the most enjoyable or satisfying feelings is the feeling of making progress, the feeling that, hey, I'm moving forward, I'm getting better, this is worth it. And habit tracking is one way to sort of reinforce that. So the simplest version of a habit tracker is you just put an X on the calendar each day. And like my dad, for example, he likes to go swimming. So each day that he goes to the pool and does his swimming, he comes back and he puts a little X on this little like pocket calendar he has. And then at the end of the month, pulls the calendar out and looks at it and tallies up how many times he went swimming and compares that to the previous month. And, it doesn't have anything to do with the workout itself. But on the bad days, on the days when he feels like, I don't really feel like going in, or I feel like that wasn't a very good workout or whatever, he can look back on that calendar and be like, yeah, you know what? Like, I didn't feel good today, but I still showed up 12 times this month or whatever the number is. So having some kind of visual cue of the progress that you're making, some way to visualize that, whether it's a calendar on the wall or the number of pages that you've read this week or whatever the thing is that you're tracking, that's a good way to add a little bit of satisfaction to the moment so that you feel like it was worth it, even if you're still waiting for those long-term rewards to accrue.
Yeah, I'd love to spend a little bit more time on that thought, because I think this was helpful to me. If I've got a goal out in the future, it could be weeks, months, or years before I achieve that goal. And it seems like I'm deferring my happiness until a milestone out in the future. How do we stay motivated, and how can we be happy long before we achieve that distant goal?
Yeah, man, this is a tough question. I've wrestled with this myself for a while. Like, do you have to be dissatisfied to be driven? Do you have to be dissatisfied with your current state to be motivated enough to say, I'm going to keep working on this? And the best solution that I've come up with, I'll give you two ways to answer this. So the first way is just to say, when you do some kind of measurement or tracking like that, when you record each instance of your habit, you are proving to yourself that you have a certain type of identity. And so if you choose an identity that's motivating to you, that's interesting or exciting to you, then that's a way to feel successful in the moment while you're also waiting for those long-term rewards to accumulate. So like each time you sit down and write for 10 minutes, you put a little X on that habit tracker and you feel like, I casted a vote for being a writer today. And that feels good because that's who I want to become. And so now you can feel happy and satisfied in the moment, and you ultimately are moving toward that goal of writing the book or whatever it is. The second thing to consider, though, is that you can also utilize what we were just talking about like the social component. Like on days when I don't feel good or I feel like I got a bad workout in or whatever, I still enjoy going to the gym because it means I get to see some of my friends. And so this is another one of the really powerful things that social accountability or just a social environment provides, is that if you're hanging out with people that you really like, people who kind of embody the identity that you're looking to build, then it feels good to be with them, even if you haven't accomplished the goal yet. It's just nice to hang out with good people. And so that's another way to really feel satisfied in the moment while you're kind of waiting for that long-term stuff to show up.
So the book is called Atomic Habits, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. The author, New York Times best-selling author on his first book, is James Clear. And James, one of the things that I really liked is you talked about, instead of just thinking about the do, this is what I want to do, we need to really start with the who. I know you're a pro baseball player. I know you are incredibly disciplined. You're a photographer, you're a blogger, you're an author. I'm curious, as you're bringing new habits into your life, who is the future James becoming?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm not going to answer it specifically, but I'm going to tell you more about my process for figuring that out. So who I'm becoming is a moving target, right? Like, context changes, life changes. You kind of go through different seasons, like maybe you're in a season where you're very career focused, and then you have some kids, and then your season is more family focused, and then your kids go to college, and then you go back and do a career focused season, or maybe you're focused on your health or whatever. And so that question of what identity do I want to build, it's going to shift over time. And for that reason, I think one of the most important sort of meta habits to build, and this is how I answer this question for myself, is the process of reflection and review. So I do this in two different ways. So at the end of each year, I conduct an annual review where I ask myself 3 questions. What went well this year? What didn't go so well? And then what am I working toward, or what did I learn? And so when I ask myself those questions, it's kind of a chance to reflect on my habits. I do a lot of measurement too. So I track, how many workouts did I do this year, and how many new places did I travel to, and how many articles did I write, and stuff like that. So it's just kind of a chance to be self-aware and to figure out where I actually stand rather than, thinking I'm doing better than I am. And then, I get to reflect on what I learned and so on. And so that's kind of a chance for me to set the baseline. Then about 6 months later, I do what I call an integrity report each summer. And again, it's got 3 questions. So what are my values? What are my values and principles? What do I stand for? Second question is, how did I live by those values this last year? So kind of a chance to pat yourself on the back and, think about where you did a good job. And then the most important one for me is, where did I fail to live up to those values and principles? Like where did I kind of feel like I fell off course? And I think this is the key piece of maintaining integrity, which, there are many ways to define integrity, but for the context of this conversation, I'll say living in alignment with your desired identity, right? Being the type of person that you wish to become, living in alignment with those values and principles. And so integrity is kind of a funny thing because like pretty much everybody thinks that they have it. It'd be very weird to talk to somebody and have them say like, oh, I'm not a person of integrity, right? It'd just be strange to hear that. And so the question is, well, if everybody has it or thinks they have it, then how do you lose it? And I think it's a gradual slide. I think it's, a series of kind of like just this once exceptions. You're like, oh, well, this time it's a little bit different, so we'll do it this way. Or maybe this time, I can let it slide. And so that integrity report helps kind of pull me back to center, helps keep me on track with the habits that reinforce the identity that I want to build and become. So I think between those two, having the annual review at the end of each year and kind of reflecting on where my habits have been and where I've been headed, and then the integrity report to ask myself, what are my values and principles now? Have anything changed? Has anything changed from last year? And in concert, when I have those together, I have a good process for reflecting on where I'm at and where I want to head. And I think that is an important way to answer that question of who are you becoming, of who are you looking to develop into, because ultimately it's a continuous process. It's not I just decide the kind of person I want to be and I can let it ride for 40 years. It's something you need to continue to revisit, I think, each year, and who knows, maybe even more consistently than I do it. But I think that having some kind of process of reflection and review is a good way to keep yourself on track and answer that question over time.
I know a lot of people that review different measurements of success, but to look at, did I live according to my values? That's so important, because if we don't get that part right, then all the external success really falls way, way short. Your book, it kind of feels like a lifelong effort. I think you've been studying this for a long time, and it really, really shows. So thank you for your investment in the work you put into the book. It's called Atomic Habits. I hope that if everyone listening to it has not read or listened to this book, I highly, highly recommend it. And just as a side note, I listen to and read a lot of books, a lot of books. And I put this at the top of the list in the last several years of books that I'm recommending.